Welcome back to Zanecinema. Today, I'm explaining a movie, Good Neighbor, released in 2022. Mr. Tai and his daughter, Gabby, just moved to Lagos from Abuja. In the first scene, we see Agent Richard handing the keys to his new apartment to him. Next we see them arranging their new home as they try to place the picture frame around the sitting room. Mr. Tai is a single dad. He lost his wife to leukemia years ago, and have been the one raising Gabby all alone. On this day, Mr. Tai was heading to work, while Gabby was going to school. As he walked outside the door, he saw this beautiful lady Rachel, so he forced Gabby back inside. It seemed they both know each other from way back, so he asked her what she was doing there. If her husband was the owner of the apartment, Rachel said she was engaged but not married. She told him she stays at the next unit, and she is actually the owner of the two units. That means she is his landlord. Both of them was surprised to see each other. Then he opens the door for Gabby. When she came out, Rachel was staring at her. She was surprised how grown Gabby had become. Then her fiancé named Smart arrives, and she joins him in the car, but Smart noticed she was acting strange after meeting her new tenant. He asked her if she doesn't like her new tenant, but she said she was fine. Smart insists to know what the problem was, but she said everything was okay, so they left. That night, it seems something was bothering her. She remembered when she was working as a maid for Mr. Tai when his wife was still alive. Then she was heavily pregnant, and Mr. Tai was acting all nice to her. The next scene, Rachel returned home with her fiancé Smart, and at the same time, Mr. Tai returned as well. Smart thinks Rachel doesn't like her new tenant, so he decides to make friend with him. The next day, someone was at the door, only for Rachel to open the door, and it was Gabby. She was surprised to see her. Gabby introduced herself and asked if she could sit. Yes, Rachel replied. She asked what she could do for her. Gabby said she watched videos on how to make concoction rice, and she want to make it for dinner. She have rice, but needs ingredients to prepare the sauce. But Rachel offered to help her prepare the food and bring it later to her. When Rachel took the food to Gabby, she met Mr. Tai. I think they are both hiding something they don't want her fiancé and Gabby to know about. Mr. Tai was asking Rachel if something could work between them, but Rachel blatantly said nothing is going to work because she was already engaged. Then Gabby walked down the stairs to meet them, but they pretend to be saying something different, and they asked Gabby to take the food to the kitchen. Then Mr. Tai offered to walk Rachel to her door, but she said he shouldn't worry. Next, Rachel returned and met Gabby sitting outside. She asked her why she was sitting there. Gabby told her she forgot her keys in the house, so Rachel suggests she call her dad. But Gabby said her dad already told her not to disturb him while he is at work for something like this. Rachel then tells Gabby to come inside with her. While Gabby was studying, she pleaded with Rachel to help her with her assignment, which she did. She later gave Gabby food to eat, and she stares at her while she eats. Gabby then asked her what she does for a living. She told her she have a mini restaurant. Gabby said she would like to be as successful as Rachel. She smiled and told her she can be successful if she works hard. When Mr. Tai returned, Gabby was already asleep. He thanks Rachel for hosting his daughter, then took her back to the house. One day, Mr. Tai came to check on Rachel because Gabby told him she wasn't feeling too well the previous day. So he asked her how she was feeling. Rachel said she was fine and offered Mr. Tai a sit. Just after he sat, the bell rang. When Rachel opened, it was Smart. He was excited to see Rachel because it was Saturday and they already have plans in place, which was to play card. When he came in, he saw Mr. Tai and invited them over to play cards together. Then Mr. Tai left to get Gabby, but Rachel wasn't happy Smart invited them. She thought it was going to ruin the fun, but Smart told her it will even be more fun to play with Mr. Tai and Gabby. They all had fun playing it together. After the game, Gabby asked if they could do it some other time. Smart suggests the next Saturday, but Gabby was sure his dad was taking her to the cinema like he promised, but he said he was going to be busy with work. So Smart told Gabby not to worry that Rachel will take her to the cinema. Rachel didn't expect that, but she agreed. and Gabby was very happy. In the next scene, we see Rachel and Gabby return from the cinema, but Gabby is not happy with his father because she wants to go and sleep over at her best friend's place, but her dad refused. So Mr. Tai told Rachel what the problem was, and she advised he let her go, because her friend's parent will be there to monitor them. So Mr. Tai agreed to let Gabby go, and he told Rachel they will make a good team as husband and wife. But Rachel don't want to be in such conversation. He told her they could start all over, but she said she was already engaged, and she have moved on. He told her she can't move on from something like this, but she said she has, and left. So what is it that they are not telling us? Next, as Rachel walked out, she met Mr. Tai cleaning his car. He asked where she was heading. She told him she was going to the supermarket, and Mr. Tai offered to take her there. Gabby already went to her friend's place for sleepover. She asked him not to worry, but he insisted and she obliged. So they went to the supermarket together. When they returned, he helped her carry the things they bought. It looks like they enjoyed each other's company. Rachel then invites him for dinner. He said he will go freshen up and join her. While they were having dinner, he asked her why she decided to move to Lagos. She said she was trying to start all over again. She wants to forget everything. He then told her the only person that was on his mind after his wife passed on was her. As he returned, Rachel and Gabby surprised him with a birthday song. He wasn't expecting it. He gave them both a warm hug. He thanked them for making him feel special. As they wine and dine together, after everything, he was having a nice chat with Rachel. Then he touched her. Immediately, Rachel thought it was time for her to leave, but he held her and kissed her forehead, and then walked her to the door. He remembered what his late wife told him on the sickbed, to get married to Rachel if she dies, and he promised her he will, only if Rachel agrees. The next day as they were leaving, Rachel tries to hug Gabby, but Mr. Tai called Gabby back, and told her to get inside the car immediately. Rachel was surprised why all of a sudden he started acting weird. Later that day, she brought dinner for them, but still, it seemed he is not happy with her. He took the food, asked her if there is anything more he can do for her. She said no, and he went back inside. Rachel wanted to know what the problem was, so she rang the bell again. When he came out, she asked him what the problem was. He said, "How will you turn your back on your daughter?" And she says,
"Evelyn was still alive. Would you have bothered looking for me? Or if you didn't stumble on this apartment, would you have bothered looking for me? And you stand there making it look like I had a choice when we actually had an agreement."
How could you turn your back on your own daughter?
Don't you dare. Don't you ever say that to me. Really? I turn my back on my daughter? You're only saying that because Evelyn is not here and it's so hard for you to raise that child on your own. Listen to me, I'm getting married. I have moved on. You should too. I have a life to lead.
Okay, so when you get married, what next? Since you want to raise your voice, when you get married, what next? You want to pretend that we don't exist?
Do you have any idea how hard it has been for me? For me to pretend like I didn't carry that child in my womb for 9 whole months? I gave up the right to be a mother. I gave up the right to nurse that baby. You think it's possible for a woman not to love the child that she bore? I gave up everything just to make you and Evelyn happy, and you stand there and make it look like I'm the bad person? If it was so much of a secret, why haven't you told her?
Yeah, but if you did love Smart, why haven't you told him?
Told me what?
So Rachel and Mr. Tai have to explain everything to Smart and Gabby respectively, and this is what happened. After Rachel completed her NYSC, she couldn't get a white-collar job, but was offered a job to work as maid to Mr. Tai and his wife. Moreover, Mr. Tai's wife was already diagnosed of leukemia. Because of her condition, her womb was removed and she won't be able to bear children, so they settled for surrogacy. She pleaded with Rachel to help her carry the baby. After everything, they paid her off. So Rachel is actually the biological mother of Gabby. After explaining everything to Smart, he called off the engagement because he feel Rachel shouldn't have hidden such information from him. The next day, Rachel was waiting for Gabby to return from school. When she eventually returned, she asked her to come inside, but she refused and walked straight to their apartment. At the last scene, Rachel pleaded with Gabby and settled with Mr. Ty, so they became one happy family. Like, share, and comment. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you.